And it's welcome back to We Love Ugly Data, the Deep Analysis podcast. It's episode 34 or series 4, episode 12, or more importantly, because it's in December, it is the prediction special. So we're all on again. We're all on last month, the Innovation Awards. We're back on again for the predictions this week. So Dan's with us. Hi, Dan.
Hey, everybody.
And Alan is off his sick bed and back with us. Hi, Alan.
Hello.
You've got conference flu.
I have got conference flu.
So for those of you who are new, part of the format is doing the format. And if you're back again, you'll know that part of the format is doing the format, but the format is different because it's a prediction special. It's 3 predictions, 30 minutes, or actually really, strictly speaking, 6 predictions, 30 minutes, 3 from last year about this year and 3 from this year about next year. And if you followed that, you've done better than I, because I'm already a little bit lost. So we'll get right into it because we've got 3 of us and we can all talk. So the predictions, you can download the predictions report for free from deepanalysis.net. If you're wondering, but Matt, what about the URL? Don't worry about it, because there are show notes by the time you listen to this. There's not at this moment because I haven't written them yet, but by the time this comes out, there will be show notes with all the links in it, and one of the links will be to this report. You don't have to be a subscriber to get hold of it, but you will have to give us some details. First name, surname, company name, email, that kind of stuff, but not very much. And then you get all of the 11 predictions, yes, including one about blockchain, because that's part of the tradition in the report. But we're not going to talk about all of them today. If you were here last year, you'll know how this works. If you weren't, then be surprised, because part of us doing this is our predictions are quite deliberately short term. They're not meant to be what's going to happen in 2035. They're going to be what's going to happen in the next year. So as part of that, we have to sort of pay tribute to our predictions from the previous year as part of this. So first up is Dan to do his 2025 review and his 2026 prediction. Dan, last year for 2025, you said to grow intelligent document processing (IDP) companies must cross the border. I'll put a link into the podcast where we discuss this particular issue in some detail. How do you think that's gone in 2025? Are you seeing companies crossing the border in the way you predicted?
Yes. In fact, the authorities are worried about all the mass migration coming across the borders.
Oh, don't joke about that, Dan. Just don't joke about it. We don't want to be creating more fuss.
Oh, I'm not joking. So when I wrote this, the border referred to IDP typically has been within a box in terms of a process. It's a pipeline, bring the documents in, and then you spit out nice curated data at the other end of it to other applications. But we noticed that in order to grow at least at the rates that these companies want to grow at, because a lot of them are funded by investors, they had to consider adding more functionality. And we've seen this happen this past year. There are several examples of companies. Rossum is one of them. Rossum has always been involved in accounts payable, but pretty much in the invoice processing piece of it. But they've added a lot of functionality that's crossed over that line. Now, working a little bit closer with the general ledger, the ERP systems. Mm-hmm. We've seen this happen with companies like Indico Data that we've covered for years. They are now doing a lot of insurance work that goes far beyond what IDP functionality is. And that's what we meant by cross the border. The other thing that happened was AI agents allow any IDP vendor to add more functionality and do things like some workflows and some approval pipelines and things that in the past an IDP company would usually not have as part of their product line. So agentic AI has really helped them. And every briefing I get, somebody's showing me a function that would not have been included in that standard list of IDP.
Well, that's good. So I guess when we look at the 2026 big IDP report, which I know, in fact, is already in the planning right now, I'm sure we'll be seeing some of this reflected in the commentary that you're adding for that, right?
You bet.
Okay, so let's get on to 2026. Oh, sorry, I should say 25. So I'm guessing we're saying 2025, that's a pass. You're going to give yourself the 2 thumbs up definitely pass that one. Okay, yeah, absolutely, 2 thumbs up. So 2026,
Right.
the unstructured data gold rush will finally begin. That's quite, you're giving yourself quite a broad topic here. So specifically, what are you expecting in 2026 around unstructured data, Dan?
Well, gold rush is it implies that there's going to be a lot of people rushing to do this, right? So yeah, I haven't given myself too much. This actually tags on to something that Alan's going to talk about in a few minutes, because last year Alan's prediction had to do with unstructured data, but we really saw this exploding in the IDP coverage this past year. And basically it's Alan and I both covered this for so long, unstructured data, and we've been through 2 other cycles where we've been told that now everybody's going to go into those file shares and they're going to organize and extract the information from all that unstructured data that's been out there for all those years.
Yeah.
Big data in 2010, that time frame, the big data people, we thought that they were going to do that back then, but they completely ignored it. What's changed is AI. AI agents and models need a lot of data. All the model makers have completely stripped everything from the internet now. They've run out of internet. And so they strip mine that completely. And now they're turning their attention to the 80 or 90% of the mythical large amount of information, the iceberg under the water, right?
Yeah.
All these documents and files across organizations, across countries that have a lot of information that could help an agent perform smarter, make better decisions, because a lot of cases it's the corporate memory that the agent is able to tap into. So because agents need a good knowledge graph to go to, they need a little RAG help, just like any LLM does, then we think that this is going to be the year where it takes off. Al and I both talked to vendors who have come into this space. They're not classic IDP vendors. We talked to Unstructured IO, which is a great name, right? Last week. And they're getting ready to take off over there. It's going to be really big, and they have nothing to do with the old IDP. This is all about preparing data en masse to go into agentic AI systems. So that's why I feel very strongly, especially after conversations the past 2 months here, that this is the year that, and who knows, maybe by the end of this year, it'll be, instead of 90% of all data is unstructured, maybe it'll get down to 85% because we'll get 5% of it done. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I'm not sure whether we should read too much into gold rush, because that creates all sorts of, I mean, some people made money in the gold rush and most people didn't make money on the gold rush.
Funny
and of course, an enormous amount of environmental harm was done by the gold rush as well. And I'm not sure we want to get into that today, but I'm guessing that's also of some relevance here.
Yeah, funny you should bring that up, because when we were interviewing Unstructured IO, I think it was last week, I think it was Alan said that in every gold rush, there's the people who sell the picks and shovels to the miners. And that's a great business to be in, because that has, I mean, Levi's is the best example that we're still buying Levi's jeans, right? So there's going to be a lot of companies that could make a lot of money and a lot of growth around what we think is about to happen here.
Cool. So let's just bring Alan in, since his name's been taken not in vain while he's been quietly sat there. And also we're going to go into your review and predictions next, but specifically on those conversations that you and Dan have been party to, Alan. How do you feel? How do you feel about Dan's 26 prediction? Does that feel pretty sound to you?
Yeah, it's completely sound. And I think actually the pick and shovel thing, I think I stole that from you, Matt. So credit where it's due. But yeah, I mean, the reality is we've got sort of 2 worlds, haven't we? We've got, which Dan's already sort of touched on, we've got the IDP world, which is specific to a process, right? You know, as we've mentioned there, accounts payable or whatever process it is. And then we got this frankly much bigger world where, to be blunt about it, we have a world that sees unstructured data as stuff that needs to become structured. And that's it. There is really nothing beyond that. They don't care where it came from. They don't care its life cycle. They don't care about compliance. I mean, I'm being very loose here, but their goal is to make it structured.
So while we're on that subject, and it kind of neatly jumps in if we get into your review and your predictions, because your prediction for this year that you made on the pod this time last year was that structured data people will stop treating unstructured data like something they got stuck in their shoes. Do you think that's happened this year? And is that part of the drive towards context? I'm doing the inverted commas thing for people who can't see this. I'm doing the inverted commas around the word context, because there's been lots of context around, and this seems to be it's certainly in the second half of the year around product announcement. Everybody's announcing a context thing. Is that part of it?
I think it is. I think it's also maybe I didn't get this 100% right, in the sense that I think it's moving that direction. I think we are I mean, look, the reality is so many of these projects fail, right? I mean, it's been so well documented. And we could argue they fail for what, 2 or 3 different reasons. 1, they don't really understand the process. 2, they picked the wrong process. But 3, most often they don't have access to the data. The access isn't good enough. So I think, yes, I think in the world of the Salesforces and the ServiceNows and the SAPs and the whatever, I think they are starting to realize that, oh, this isn't, in their world, we can't just convert it to structured data. We actually have to have some concept of where it came from.
Right.
Should I have access to it? Does it include PII data? You know, I mean, I think they're starting to realize that this isn't just a technical challenge. There's a lot more going on here.
There's a contextual challenge. It's not about being able to chop it up in such a way that you can force it into the boxes you already have prepared. It's more understanding the nuance of it and what you're able to extract from it beyond enforcing structure, right?
Yeah. So I think it's happening. I mean, I think the bottom line is it's probably not happening quickly enough.
Okay. So let's get on to 2026. Your prediction for 2026, edge computing will re-emerge as a strategic imperative. Now, this seems a little bit outside what we normally talk about. So I'm going to sort of sit back in my chair a little bit and let you school us on edge computing, Alan.
Well, edge computing is what it sounds like, right? It's computing at the edge, right? So if we take, I mean, look, this is a stretch because I'm using edge. Cisco wouldn't define it this way. I am.
Okay.
So if we take an example like Ignite, okay, a lot of their customers have construction engineering sites that are remote. So going straight to the web, going to the internet, have they got a great connection? Going back to a central server, have they got a great connection? So they do a lot around caching, for example, right? So because they've got large files, they've got large files, droids, etc.
Yep.
So there's that kind of edge, if we like, but there's also the fact that it's been discussed a lot this year, and I suspect largely because of geopolitics, people don't want to move actually to the cloud, right? So if you're going to keep stuff on premise, but you've got a remote workforce or you've got remote suppliers and stuff, you've got to start thinking about how they can work efficiently wherever they are.
Right.
And then we can layer in the AI thing. Does everything need to go to a global network of data centers to answer a simple query? No, it doesn't, right? It really doesn't. That can be done on the device you're working on in most cases, right? In most cases. So yeah, I think for the really smart ones, certainly in the business apps world, I think they are starting to rethink about, okay, well, the reality is everybody doesn't sit in one central office. We know this, right? They are distributed, but the idea that everything needs to go to the internet and be processed by massive data servers all over the world, really? Is that the best option? Because all they're trying to do is find out, is this contract still valid? Has it been signed?
Mhm.
Right? No, we can do this at the device level through.
Well, and not just that, Alan. I mean, that's not something that really an LMM knows about. That's something
No,
absolutely
exactly.
party data.
So, yeah, and we've got, what was it we found out yesterday? Was it 2 million different AI models, right? Well, the reality, most of those are tiny. Yeah, and they can be deployed locally onto devices, or at least into central little hubs. So again, I think it's just there's a rethink going on about everything has to go to the big lump in the sky versus can we actually do this within our own network of devices and servers.
Cool, interesting. Dan, you're still on the line with us, aren't you?
No, he gave up. He got bored.
Dan, I was just going to ask, since we had Alan discussing a little bit on the tail end of your predictions, a lot of the stuff that you're working on and the IDP people you speak to, a lot of these are quite process critical elements. Is edge computing is something that's coming up in their purview right now, or is that something that's kind of beyond where they're thinking?
Well, yeah, so it's been going on for quite a while. Just one example is the new customer onboarding that goes on for several industries. We can talk about insurance, banking, et cetera. Customers are being asked to capture documents on their phones.
Yeah.
And do some processing. In the past, it's been upload everything, just blobs to the cloud, and then everything will happen on the server. But now we have the ability to do some of that processing locally at the edge, which has a couple really nice benefits. Alan's already gone over. But one of them is that you can immediately present the data that's going to be transferred from that document to the user before it gets finalized, so that they don't get an error message back the next morning, 24 hours later, saying, oops, we couldn't read that, you got to do it again, or something like that. So this gives us the ability to make those corrections happen almost in real time. So that's what I think is exciting for anybody that's involved in document processing.
So I guess if we're talking about not just on-device processing, but the kind of nano model versions which actually run on devices that are pared down to just the functions that are required for that remote worker doing that remote task in that remote location, right?
Yeah, and I think also we have to look at how agents are really going to shine in this particular configuration. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's something to look forward to for this year. Remember where you heard that first. Although, as we pointed out several times, a bunch of these ideas are kind of cyclical, and a lots of the predictions could be, and this time we mean it, could be appended to the end of it, and we'll see how this go around works on that. So, on to my 2025 review and my 2026 prediction. So my one last year, you may remember this. The shift to payment on outcome is going to lead to some awkward conversations between customers and suppliers. You will have noticed that payment on outcome hasn't really been much in the news in the last 6 to 9 months, and it hasn't really taken off. So part of the inspiration behind this, and this will save you going back to last year and rewatching the podcast again, although if you want to, feel free, it's still there, was about Salesforce specifically looking at a per conversation pricing for Agentforce. So, and that conversation pricing would end when a certain set success criteria had been met. This was at the point where the broad pricing they were offering for Agentforce was, $2 a conversation, the success criteria being mutually agreed somehow. And we said, well, you think that's probably going to be a little bit difficult. And by March of this year, other pricing options suddenly became available on Agentforce, to the point now where there's a vast variety of different pricing models available. The $2 one is still there, but they are a mix of pay as you go and pay up front, and buying lumps. So a lot of those more familiar consumption methods
that we familiar with from from cloud computing forwards, all those consumption models are kind of coming into play here. But if you thought suddenly that's making understanding the economics of agents easy, it is not making them easy. It is actually making them not more complicated, but it's really actually just adding more potential challenges to those calculations. For example, there are customers who are doing quite a lot with agents, a relatively small number, but doing quite a lot in there. And many of those that are working with vendors very closely are being, if not free of charge, then at massive discounts. Listening to one speaking recently on the community of practice I was listening to, where they said, well, this is working really well for us. We're a big success story for this technology. What we have been speaking to our vendor about is, can you help us price this against the price list? So we know we're getting a big discount here, but what's this actually going to cost to run in production? Because we can't work it out from your price list. And the upshot was the vendor couldn't either. So the more pricing options you have, the more different ways in which you can charge. This gets more complicated. So perhaps the awkward conversations are not over whether payment on outcome is going to be the thing. So maybe that was a bit of a misguidance. The awkward conversation is, we want to put this in production, but we don't know what it costs. Can you tell us? And that isn't proving to be as simple at the end of 2025 as we thought it might be by this point. So I'm going to give myself a pass because it's my game, and I can award myself as many points as I want. But I think the awkward conversation has changed. Dan, you wanted to jump in at this point?
Oh, I wanted to support your defense there. You recall we asked that question in that big IDP survey that we did for AIM this year about different pricing models, and payment on outcome was so minuscule in the response that it almost didn't make 1% of 500, 600 respondents we got. So, and again, it was people were citing the same issues that you brought up. Mainly the CFOs have a budget, and nobody's budget has well, maybe some, but maybe more. They don't have that, right?
Yeah, there's elasticity. It's not something that CFOs are happy to have described around budgets. No. And this is, I do spend, a large amount of time listening to, to end user customers, but also partners as well as vendors discussing this. And I think they would all be broadly, certainly off the record, would all be broadly in agreement that working out the economics of this, being able to onboard a customer and say, we understand your use case, this is how you do it technically. I think those bits are becoming more comfortable, and this is what it's going to cost. Then it gets less comfortable, and what that means in terms of your top line or bottom line revenue becomes even less comfortable. So the further we actually build into those financial projections, I think the more complicated those sums become. We will be talking more about that in 2026, whether you like it or not. We just will be. So into 2026 predictions. I need to be just a bit calm and zen about this because I might get a bit angry. So I do apologise if I get even more red-faced than I appear in this image already. So my prediction for 2026: doorstep adoption of AI will be exposed as a counterproductive farce. I told this as being, doorstep adoption or potentially basket abandonment, doorstep basket abandonment of AI. What does that mean? Well, it basically means suppliers going to their customers and saying, well, part of the renewal this year is that you will be taking our AI products and you can't cancel this. Oh, and by the way, the price is going up. And then hoping from the delivery of these products that customers will start using them. Now, this is happening. We obviously are very focused on the enterprise side of it, the business side of this. This is also happening on a consumer side. I personally have productivity suite subscriptions personally and professionally, and they've both tried to do it to me this year. And I was talking to Alan about this yesterday, and I need to make sure that I'm plugging in my regional lexicon to this. It's a bit like having a car that you really like and then waking up the following morning and finding that somebody has welded a trailer to it that you can't unhitch, but you have to pay for, and you have to drag it around everywhere behind your car, whether you like it or not. With the idea well, it's providing wonderful utility. Maybe, but I didn't need a trailer. The UK or European version of this was caravan, but I don't think that necessarily translates into US English. So pick whichever one it is, trailer or caravan. Imagine it's been welded to your car without your permission, but you have to pay for it. And it feels a lot like this. Okay, so that's the inconvenience on a personal level. I've got a bunch of functionality I don't use. What does that mean in our world of trying to understand, let's say, AI adoption? Well, this is when it gets a little bit difficult. You will have noticed at conferences you've been to this year, you have seen big slides and it will say something like 70% of the Fortune 500 are using our AI product. Does that mean that, or does that mean 70% are now licensed? So probably for next year it'll be 80 or 90%, because as renewals come in, these things are in the license bucket. What does that mean in terms of usage? One user out of 1,000, 2,000, 5,000, 10,000 has switched it on once. Sure, it might make your slide defensible. Does that make your technology useful? Is it providing utility as a result of this? You see, I think taking AI tools, or any tools for that matter, but leaving them on the doorstep, ringing the bell and saying, please adopt and look after these new AI kittens. And by the way, the bill for their feed is coming, whether you like it or not, leaves enterprises in the position where you either have to suck it up and pay it, or two, and I've written a little bit about this year, get into the kind of projects when you're like, well, we've got this thing, we better see whether we can use it or not. And I've worked on some bad projects in my career, right? You know, where from the outset you think you're on a hiding to nothing. Starting a project because you're worried about something being shelfware is not necessarily the way to find its utility. But if you're a VP and your bonus is on how many people are adopting the product, and by adopting it might mean turning it on, using it once a month, something like that, I can really see why that might be attractive. Dan, you want to say something?
Yeah, no, I'll add to. I completely agree with you. I also got very upset when my Microsoft Office renewals came around.
Mm-hmm.
When we first saw Copilot in its original form over 2 years ago, before they launched it, my first impression was, when I saw what they were doing, I thought, I think Microsoft is basically trying to help solve all the productivity problems they've created with all of their bloated software products over the years. And so now they're going to give us this assistant to try to kind of help us find stuff, because we can't find anything in our 750 SharePoint libraries, right? So that was my impression. And I still kind of feel that way about it, that if you're a Microsoft house, Copilot can be very useful to help you organize your Microsoft stuff. Yep. Not sure outside of that yet what it does. So I'm with you. The second thing I want to say is several of these companies that are forcing us on this are publicly traded companies. And they have to report in the United States, for all of our international listeners, quarterly. Every 90 days, they have to talk about their sales, their profits, and give guidance on where they think that's going over the next 90 days and the next 12 months. And based on what they say on those conferences, their stock either dives or it goes up. So there's a tremendous undercurrent here of, I think, public companies like that, that have to put their AI into everything so that they can then say, we got 95% adoption or something like that, so that the punters who are buying the shares feel good about it. There's no relation to actually driving new revenue, but I think that is something that we just have to take into account.
Yeah, Alan, you want to jump in?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I mean, I agree with everything you're both saying, but I mean, this is an old problem. I mean, I call it the autonomy problem as well, as a side issue, that you just rebrand everything and say it's all AI, right? And suddenly, you know, in your quarterly calls, you're saying everybody's been adopting the autonomy idle. Everything was idle under autonomy, right? Whether it was or wasn't. And so we're seeing that with Salesforce, for example. Everything's Agentforce now. I mean, so that's what I'm saying. It's sort of a multi-pronged thing. But I just wanted to say that actually there's already been pushback. I mean, in Australia, there's already lawsuits being filed that you can't just upcharge something that nobody asked for. So I know in Australia, and I think somewhere else, there's already some big sort of antitrust type thing building around this pricing adoption, because bottom line is nobody's asking for it, so why am I paying for it?
Yeah, so there's a few interesting things you raised. I mean, Dan, on the Copilot thing, having recently done done more than my fair share of time at Ignite, going through the various sessions. The difficulty in understanding what Copilot is and isn't is not just a you and me problem. It's very much a customer problem. And actually, even inside Microsoft, they're quite confused because everything is called Copilot in some way or another that touches AI in any way. Everything from from Dynamics down to desktop, everything somehow is related to that. So it's quite hard to find a single factor of what it is designed to do. It's much more difficult with Microsoft to get precise because of the way they report. It's quite hard to get precise adoption figures. I've got a lot of anecdata from Microsoft partners. I've read some reportage that's talking about Copilot as a productivity tool being probably around 2 to 3% of install base, which is a lot of people, but not a lot in terms of the cover of the install base. So there's that. You mentioned Salesforce, Alan. I put some stuff on Blue Sky last week from their Q3 numbers of where they are in adoption. There's a lot of headlines about, adoption of Agentforce is going really well, and what they've got in terms of adoption isn't nothing, but it's still at this stage a relatively small percentage of overall. And it's only about 25% of people paying for Agentforce have got it live yet. So I think that's an important figure to look at. There's the people who are paying for the software, and then there's those people who've actually got certainly agent stuff, which is not simple to get into production. That's an important thing to watch. Right, we are almost at time. As I suspected, I need to be really on the stopwatch this month to get us through. So that was my 25 review and my 26 prediction. We'll have to see in a year's time how those have gone. Next time, there will be 3 more topics. It'll be 2026. Start off. I should have put that on the slide. It'll be 2026, and it'll be January. There'll be 3 more topics and 30 minutes to discuss them in. So first of all, thank you for joining us, not just through this, but throughout this year. We've all contributed a big chunk to this pod, and we do appreciate those of you who have stuck with us for one episode or more than one. So Dan, thanks for your contributions this year and for pitching in for this.
Thank you.
And Alan, as ever, thank you for your contributions and for rocking up for a good number of podcasts this year. I really appreciate that.
You're welcome.
And thanks everybody else for viewing. We'll see you again in 2026.